Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
My guest today is Dara Royer, Chief Development and Marketing Officer of Mercy Corps, a global humanitarian aid agency that helps people in turmoil caused by war, natural disasters, or economic collapse. These folks deal with incredible challenges every day, and while it makes marketing challenges seem insignificant by comparison, I think it's worth noting that marketing can make a difference even for an organization as special as Mercy Corps, especially if it's in the hands of someone dedicated to the craft, so dedicated to the craft as Dara Royer. So Dara, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I have this theory that there's at least a little renegade in every CMO. What is one way that you're a renegade?
Where others run away, I run toward challenge. In fact, like a bee to honey. Truly, if you tell me something can't be done or there's no way that we can accomplish something, then to me, that's the clarion call to action. And I'm going to take on that challenge and run square at it and try to wrestle it to the ground. So at Mercy Corps, for example, there are 2 million purpose-driven organizations in the U.S., and we're working to put ourselves on the map with a smaller marketing team, a smaller budget than some of the big dogs, and we're already making progress against that goal.
So it's a great, running towards a challenge. It's certainly a very renegade thing, as opposed to the old Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Run away, run away. I'm sorry, no, that's not Holy Grail. Yes, it was Brave Sir Robin who ran away. But you are brave and you run at the challenge. So when you're running at the challenge and you are underfunded, what's one non-traditional technique that you've used with success?
We handle a lot of things that most other organizations or businesses would outsource. We handle those things in-house. Great example would be global brand research. There are many organizations that would pay big bucks to do that. We didn't have those dollars. So we actually trained a team, our teammates that work in many of the different countries in which we operate. We taught them research methodology, and we taught them how to talk to their fellow team members, how to talk to government officials in the area, and how to talk to the beneficiaries for the people that we help in order to pull out insights that were going to be valid for us to synthesize as part of a global brand research. And the benefit of that was that we were actually bringing them along, our global teammates along in the process of building our global brand. And so that was actually the upside of taking a road less traveled.
It's really interesting. We have a client who's looking at a global study, and it's hugely expensive to do it right. I mean, to translate it into multiple languages and then to try to synthesize the data after it's in these languages and then bringing it back to English. So that's a great suggestion, is using the employees. The tricky part is, of course, getting them trained. How did you make sure that they did this in a valid research fashion?
It's a great question, because as we all know, garbage in, garbage out. So if you didn't have a solid research methodology, you wouldn't have valid results. So we did a number of trainings with the people who were going to participate. And then we actually had them do mock interviews, because this was all qualitative research. So we had them do mock interviews with us so we could give them feedback on the way that they were approaching the work. And every single person was trained in that same fashion, following this research guide that we created. And the proof was in the pudding. The results that we got back were consistent. They were valid. And the reason we knew they were applicable is because we were able to pull out the same kind of thematics regardless of the country in which the research was done, that the same kind of themes were coming to the surface. So incredibly powerful and much, much less expensive than the traditional way of approaching the work.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm curious because we encourage our clients to do research for any number of reasons. And I'm curious how you were able, once you gathered all this information, how you used the research.
The research was the underpinning of our brand refresh that we did. And not only was it important to help get the organization out of what I call the echo chamber, right? Where we talk to each other, we nod our heads, and we all share a brain around what we believe the truth is. And yet there are lots of different perceptions that exist out there. So part of what we were trying to do was show the organization some different perspectives that exist. And so that was step one. We shared this information internally, but it absolutely informed how we positioned our brand strategy and ultimately our visual and our verbal identity.
It's so interesting that the first use of the research was to get the internal audience on board, and that's been a consistent theme on Renegade Thinkers Unite is organizational alignment and how marketers have to have that in order to succeed. If employees aren't on board, it simply doesn't happen. And when I mean employees, I mean everyone from the CEO down to the mailroom person.
I agree. I say it's your first audience. We often think about external as being a target audience. Your first audience is your colleagues.
So with this research, we all know that it's hard to get marketing messages to stand out. What's maybe it was the research, but what's the one thing you do to make sure that your marketing cuts through?
We are focused on sharing what we call our epic, not the episode. And what I mean by that is, particularly for an organization like ours that works in 42 different countries, our work is so vast and so diverse. We're trying to tell one big story versus lots of little stories. And we want to make sure that whenever anyone is interacting with Mercy Corps, sees any kind of, be it a video, a direct mail piece, that they're understanding what that larger story is. And so telling the epic, being consistent in the story that we're telling, that is a huge focus for us in trying to break through the noise. Because when you try to tell many different episodes, people start to not understand who you are, what you do, and why you matter.
And so that's interesting, and I haven't heard storytelling put that way, but certainly we all love epics. What is the epic story that you're telling for Mercy Corps?
So our epic is rooted in this fundamental belief that a better world is possible, and that if you want to create transformational change in individuals, in communities, in our broader world, you need to not only meet people's urgent needs of today, but you need to focus on helping them build a stronger tomorrow. And so every story that we tell, be it about our response to an earthquake in Nepal, or the way that we are helping millions of refugees who are fleeing war or conflict in their countries, the common theme there is that our donors, or the people that partner with us, are the bridge from what is a challenge today to the better tomorrow that we believe is possible in the world.
That's amazing, and it must be inspiring every day to work at an organization like this. And we're going to take a quick break because I really want to get at some of the things that you're doing. But we'll take a quick break, and when I get back, I'm going to ask Dara some examples of what she thinks state-of-the-art marketing is, both for regulars as well as a nonprofit organizations like Mercy Corps. We'll be right back.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
All right, we're back, and my guest is Dara Royer of Mercy Corps. So, Dara, can you give an example of what you consider state-of-the-art in marketing today?
So, Drew, I'm going to give you a very renegade answer, which is...
Yeah, I love it. Yes, awesome.
I think a lot of people associate state-of-the-art with what's the latest, newest, shiniest platform or technology to use. And what I really think marketers should be focusing on right now is the human story that they need to be telling. And how do you tell that story in a way that breaks through because it connects with people? You know, if you look at, for example, the Like a Girl campaign that Always did, just incredible the way that they became relevant to people. They didn't use incredible new technology. They, took a very basic approach, but it was wonderful, terrific storytelling. And I'd say we are working to do the same thing every moment of every day here at Mercy Corps, which is to tell damn good human stories. That's our charge.
And that's a great, I'm a big fan of storytelling, and of course the Like a Girl story is legendary. It was just so powerful and dealt with a real human truth. It's easier said than done, though. I mean, and how do people approach storytelling, or what, from your challenge of looking at storytelling, what are some of the tricks that you've learned to make sure that you have a great story?
It's a great question, and I'm going to tell you a story in my answer, which is, first, I think you start with relevancy. And an understanding of the audience that you're trying to engage with, and what is going to make a story relevant to their world and their life long enough for them to pause. And the story that I'll tell you is about our desire at Mercy Corps to talk about our conflict resolution work. Sounds like a snoozer, right? It's hugely important, though, because when we work with refugee populations, for example, and you have 2 million refugees flowing across borders, it can create huge tensions in host communities. So we set out to tell this conflict resolution story. And the story we ended up telling was from the perspective of a mother who had been part of a conflict resolution program, and she and the other mothers in this group ended up creating a playground where their children, Syrian children and Lebanese children, could come together and play together. And the result was incredible. These women all became part of a larger community. And what you heard was her voice. You saw her tears. You saw the children playing on the playground together. It was hugely compelling, and it was relevant and relatable to any mother, anyone who's been a child, to just about anyone could get into the heart of the story. And yet it was on a very wonky subject. And so, kudos to our team and our producer for heading in and into the situation and saying, what would make this a relatable story to people? And you show versus tell, right? We showed something versus saying, we want to talk to you about the importance of conflict resolution.
It's amazing because it's not preachy, but it's very it's very clear and it's very moving, and I mean that's why we sort of all like storytellers. Now, I'm practically weeping as you tell it. Of course, I'm an easy cry, but that's another story. So I'm curious, what resource or one resource would you suggest that other, if you will, renegade marketers think about or look to?
So this is a personal resource that I think renegade marketers need to tap into, and that's, simply put, it's courage. When you're a renegade, when you're disruptive, either in your organization or in the marketplace as a marketer, you're going to have opinions that aren't popular. You're going to stand alone. You're going to have to be able to dig deep and have confidence and trust in what you see and what you believe as being opportunity if you're going to create big change, big positive change. And so the one resource is you have to be courageous.
Yes, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's as if you heard my what's called episode 0, but in my analysis of successful chief marketing officers, I call them CATS, C-A-T-S, and the CAT stands for courage, artful, thoughtful, and scientific, and courage being first and foremost. And without it, they really don't stand a chance. So thank you for bringing that up. As we wrap up, what's the toughest lesson that you've learned when it comes to marketing?
Being right doesn't always matter. And, I was schooled in speech and debate, competed for a long time, and I learned in that trade that if you brought the right evidence to the table and you were a good speaker, well, you generally win. Well, it doesn't work that way in the real world and in business. And particularly in today's day and age, I think a lot of people will come to the table, whether they work in HR or they are in finance, and everyone thinks they're a marketer. Or they're a photographer because they can take pictures on their phone. And you can't just show up at the table like you're hired to be the expert and you wear the CMO hat or you're in charge of marketing and therefore everybody should just pause and you're right and listen to you. You have to have great negotiation skills. You have to understand internal dynamics and politics. You have to be a good listener. And so being right isn't always enough to get you to the finish line.
It is absolutely truth. And Dara, I want to thank you so much for being on Renegade Thinkers Unite. And I'm going to summarize some of the things that I heard that I think all the listeners will benefit from. And it really is almost a very short mini marketing plan. It starts with a clear strategy. It can be informed by the research that you do. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can use employees to get this research done. When you're done with the research, you end up with a very clear positioning for the brand. And as you think about the brand, think about one big story that you can tell as opposed to, as Dara described it, as these mini chapters so that you don't dilute it. But the one big story, the key to making the story work is relevancy. Now, in addition to that, because you can be relevant and boring, you have to have the courage. You have to have the courage to think big and be bold when it comes to your story. And then lastly, as you're trying to get, you have this courage, but you can't simply say, here it is. You have to be artful. You have to find ways to get other people to understand and if anything, make it their idea. One of my hero, Benjamin Franklin, often did everything he could to avoid taking credit for all the brilliant ideas that he had when he was in Philadelphia, because he figured that no one would like him if he was responsible for everything. So he tried to, through a Socratic method, get people to sort of think on their own and get there. Extremely artful. So with that summary, Dara, this was a brilliant, a helpful and insightful episode. So thanks so much for being on Renegade Thinkers Unite.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.